This is Hello, everybody. Welcome to another session of LinkedIn Live. So every Tuesday at 12 noon Eastern Time, we go live where we bring in various topics and discussions on leading and managing change, especially in today's business environment and today's fast-paced business environment. Great to have everybody on board. So if you're joining us live, be sure to join in on the conversation. Just put a comment in. Let's know where you're joining us from. Really great to have you guys on board with us today. And if you're watching the rebroadcast, be sure to just drop us a comment, ask questions, and we always come back to check the comments and respond. We love interactive discussion, so feel free to ask questions or join in on the conversations as we go along. And today's guest is Samantha. And I love that we have Samantha here. We're spotlighting Samantha today as a change leader. I've known Samantha now. Samantha, how long? 2 years?
At least 2 years, yeah.
Yeah, we
hmm
met 2019 at
In
the
person.
yes, at the Change Leadership Conference, and we've just connected through the years. We've had you part of our change conversations, and we've had you as part of our Change Leadership program, and me, you've just connected. So really great to have you on here, Samantha. Let's get started with you introducing yourself to the audience. We want to hear it from you. Tell us a little bit about you and what you do.
Sure. So I'm a change coach and advisor and consultant. So what that means is I help people go through personal change as a coach, but then also professional change. So change in organizations. So I have my own consulting business, but I also work full time for a global med tech company right now, helping to roll out their global change efforts.
Gosh, great to have you here. I love that you help with folks. You're really multifaceted and doing different things, which to me is really the future of work. No longer those times where we just box ourselves into this is what I do and this is what I have to do and nothing else, but being able to acquire skills in different ways. So, to all those folks joining us, I see you in the comments. Thank you for joining us. We have from Virginia Beach, we have from Toronto. So, welcome everybody. Great to see you, Dr. Cindy and Yaxel. If you have any questions, be sure to pop it in the box in the comments and we will ask and just join in the conversation. And so, Samantha, the next question I want to go to you and ask is what does it mean to be a change leader? Want to get your perspective on what it means to be a change leader.
Sure. So being a change leader means that you really believe the change that you're trying to implement. It means that you embody it, you speak it, you model it, you encourage it, and really you hold the microphone to be able to talk about it in your organization. And so when you say it that way, you may recognize that it's not a job title. So
Mm-hmm.
while it's fantastic if the people at the top are the change leaders, you can have several change leaders scattered throughout. So people who are passionate about the change that's happening, they will embody it and model it, and that will help to carry your message for greater adoption.
And thanks for saying that. And also thanks for bringing in that aspect of, who a change leader is. And one of the things I find that people really get confused with is change management versus change leadership. So to you, what's the difference between change management versus change leadership?
Change management is very tactical. So it's necessary, but it is very tactical. So what that means is, a typical change management team would have somebody responsible for a communication strategy, a training strategy, and also to do some of the upfront work, like a change
Hmm.
impact analysis and the analysis type work. So it's
Hmm.
very important, but it is very tactical. Change leadership is more the, as I mentioned before, sort of the embodiment of the change itself. It's
Hmm.
usually you're trying to modify in a change effort. There's usually underlying behaviors that you're really wanting to roll out. So a change leader will exemplify what those new behaviors are, whether that be the use of a new technology or particular behaviors, management behaviors that need to be
Mhm.
rolled out in an organization. They will embody it and help to roll it out rather than it being a very tactical process. They'll
Mhm.
also be, as I mentioned, like the microphone. So they will help to carry the message. They will bring the message to their team meetings. They will bring it to the individuals that they work with, and they will help to even send out messages when they do have to be sent out by the change management team. So it's really important to have those people on your side when you're rolling out a change strategy.
Yeah. And one of the things I like, you said, is that, it's not a, say, for instance, title or, even a job role type of thing. It is a role. And in a common misconception per se could be that, change leadership is reserved for the people at the top or for the folks at the top or management. To you, who is a change leader? Could it be anybody, or is it somebody who has power, somebody who has title? You say exemplify behavior. Can somebody without a job title or, position exemplify that type of behavior and lead
Mm-hmm.
change? Who is a change leader?
Sure. So first of all, power and title always helps. I'm not going to be naive there. It helps for sure.
I love
Um,
how you put that up for us. Let's not get it
let's
twisted.
be honest here. Yes, but so one of the part of my toolkit is I bring positive psychology to change initiatives, and in
Mhm.
the School of Positive Organizational Change in the University of Michigan, they talk about positive energizers. So positive energizers are people who they are naturally enthused about something that's going on in the organization, and they are very able to carry messages because of it. So if
Mhm.
you look for those positive energizers, you may recognize them. If you're on a call and you see a certain person, they sort of appear like a bright spark, and you're like, oh, I'm so glad that person's on the call. That's an example of somebody who, if they are passionate about your change initiative, they will be able to help be a change leader and carry that message forward for you and be a champion without having the title.
Thank you for that one. But you bring something up that I'm not going to let you just get off the hook. Positive
Uh-oh.
psychology. Somebody is hearing positive psychology and they're thinking, what is positive psychology? So tell us a little bit about that before we, continue with change leadership. I'm intrigued. I know about it because, hey, we've known each other, but tell us a little bit more about it.
Sure. So the science of applied positive psychology, it's about moving in the direction of what's right and what's working. So when
Mhm.
you channel your energy onto something that's working well, it travels much further. It's called the broaden and build approach. So as you put the positive energy out there, it's reciprocated. People like to meet people who are positive. They respond to that positivity, and often there's a wonderful back and forth that creates a forward moving momentum. And you
Mhm.
definitely want that forward moving momentum and energy when it comes to change.
Mhm.
So what that would look like in applying it to change efforts is in the communications that you choose. You
Mm.
could, for example, if you're trying to get people on board for something, you can say, we will all fail unless you do this training. This effort's going to fail unless everyone does this training. Or you can say, if everyone takes this training, we're going to be propelled to new heights and we're going to really meet that organizational goal. That's a very different feeling and much more
Mm.
motivational for people to take the training rather than fear of some kind of demise.
Thank you for using that example, and it really comes in handy. And it's one of the things that I've been watching out for personally, even when I write communication, as opposed to thinking in, saying things that could happen negatively, which there are many things that could happen negatively, but flipping it around in the positive is really valuable. And I didn't even know there was a word for it in terms of I was starting to do it, but when, for instance, I was putting together an email or reviewing an email that was written, and it was saying, if you don't do this, it means, we're going to stop providing this, IE information. And I was like, I had to look for a way to say, instead of saying, that sounded a little bit negative. So I had to look for a way to say, how can we put in negative? Like, would love for you to continue to have access to this program. So please take the time to continue to do this XYZ. So is that an example of flipping it more positively?
Yes, they're saying we will continue to have access if you complete this
Yeah.
course by
Yeah.
this date. Right? So, it's not about you're being authentic, and that I think is the most important thing, because people can see through. If you're just wearing rose colored glasses and everything is like perfect, they will know, they won't believe your message. But
Mm-hmm.
if you're really taking the truth and just framing it in a positively energetic way, if that makes sense, it makes sense in my world. But if you, for example, um, there are certain lenses through which you can look at the world, right? So if you
Mm-hmm.
imagine two lenses, one is a pessimistic lens,
Mm-hmm.
that sees threat and is sort of has more of a negativity bias. Then
Mm-hmm.
there's another lens that is more optimistic. So
Mm-hmm.
both of those, you can't say which one is the truth, because the author Mordecai Richler says there's 2 and 22 different ways of looking at a situation.
Mm-hmm.
But however, we do know that one view can help to propel you forward. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's that forward momentum that has my attention and has organizations' attention, in particular when it comes to change.
Okay, I love that. Samantha, we could just go into a rabbit hole talking about this. But one of the things that I'm taking out of this is how you can use positive psychology even in the communication that you put out and how you engage with people when it comes to leading change. It makes a whole load of difference because change leadership, or whether change management, leading and managing change, is all about getting that buy-in. It's all about that adoption. It's all about engagement. And there's the way that we can use positive psychology to be able to engage with our stakeholders, and totally love that. So, thanks for, bringing up positive psychology and indulging me as we talk a little bit about it. So I'm thinking right now, when it comes to, you know, um, organizations and change leadership and even change leaders, why is that important? Why do organizations need change leaders, or do organizations need change leaders? So what's the most important thing for organizations to focus on when it comes to change leadership or change leaders?
So why do they need them? Again, I have a sense. I think that it goes back to that authenticity piece.
Hmm.
We're here, you're at your workplace to serve your organization.
Hmm.
And so if you're there to serve your organization and the messages are only at the mid-level and down, then people won't really believe that what they're doing is significant. They're really trying to do what the upper management and what the leaders are telling them to do. But if they're not doing it, then how can you expect the others to follow? So change leaders are so important. If these change initiatives really are important, then the leaders will do the change as well.
Exactly. And, to the point of what you mentioned earlier on about, anybody being able to be a change leader, anybody on that call, even the energizers, that can take a message and drive it. I think about, where we're going in today's, accelerated future of work, today's flat structures, whereby change needs to happen very quickly, and having those change leaders that can take the message forward, that can embody the message, as opposed to waiting for somebody at the top to say, hey, do this or do that, and the time it takes. But if we have those energizers, if, in your words, if we have those change leaders, we have people who are really moving quickly with the message and moving forward with the message. We just mentioned future of work. As we experience the accelerated future of work, what do you consider to be some of the top skills for one to position themselves in today's business landscape, and why?
Sure. Well, I think that it's really important to have a diverse lens when you're looking at the landscape these days. So when I say that, there's sort of two things that come to mind. So one is the strategy that you use. So the change model of hand, head, and heart. Being able to approach your change tactics with those three lenses, I think will really really help to have impact, because you're
Mhm,
addressing the three different audience types. The
mhm,
other part, of course, is diversity and inclusion, and also intersectionality.
mm,
So, what that means is if you're putting together a change strategy, you have to think about what your own bias is, going into creating that change strategy. Now, there is something actually on the Government of Canada website. It's called the GBA Plus intersectionality framework. And it's actually a free certificate. And I actually recommend it to anybody because they also provide some resources to help you check your own biases. This came
Mm.
about because I interviewed somebody for an article that I wrote on diversity, inclusion, and change. And she's a senior policy advisor for the government of Ontario, the government of Canada. And what she was saying is that when they write policy, they don't just, when you're writing policy, you're writing it, you have to make sure you're not just writing it for the English lady who lives in, Northern Ontario. You're writing it for her, but you're also writing it for the young man who just arrived from another country to go to university,
Mm.
and you can do sort of a check on yourself too, saying, well, who surrounds me the most that might be affecting my bias right now.
Mhm.
What nationality and gender is my doctor?
Mhm.
What about the peers that I work with, the people I speak to the most at work? Are they affecting my framework and my strategy right now?
Mhm.
So by being able to have a diversity framework in place, it will help you to have a further reach, because you're going to be strategically trying to reach more people rather than the one that you're generally biased towards. And again, you
Mhm.
may not recognize that you're biased towards it, but you can very easily go into an organization assuming people are like you or like
Mm.
your core group. However, if you can reach a wider audience, then you'll have further reach with your adoption efforts. So I think
Mm.
that's very important these days for change leadership to, if they really want to go far and wide, then it's to really
Mm.
know their audience, listen to them, and check their own bias.
I like that. Know your audience, and you refer to the hat and hand model, which we can link back to. So that's a free test that is available. Anybody can take it, and we're gonna add the link. So even knowing your audience, knowing yourself as well, not just knowing your
Mm-hmm.
audience. And I also love what you talk about with the diversity framework, because when we think about the accelerated future of work, it's easy for people to think about new skills. It's easy for people to think about remote working. It's easy for people to think about technology, but the future of work is also diverse. The
It's
future of
people.
work,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, is people. The future of work is that, it's a global landscape right now where we're interacting with different folks. So even work, how do you work with your different audiences? How do you understand even your bias? And all of those things. So when we think about diversity, or when we think about future of work, having that lens on diversity is very key. And Samantha, I'm going to have to ask you this one. Can you share that link to where we could take that test?
Yes, absolutely. Yep. And also, and not to be impolite, but people can also Google it. So
Mhm.
GBA plus, and that will you'll be led to a Government of Canada website. It doesn't matter what country you live in, you should be able to access it.
Okay, so we're gonna do that, and I will also find it, and we can share the link for anybody. But for sure, I'm gonna be checking that out. And
Good.
we have the diversity DEIB lens masterclass discussion, and we've been discussing this in the last few weeks. So diversity and inclusion and biases are all part of things that, as a change leader, we need to be very cognizant of when we're working with different stakeholder audiences. So thank you so much for bringing that one up.
Yes, and I did attend that master class, and I did love how you added the B on there, diversity, inclusion, and belonging, because I think the undercurrent actually even of change initiatives is we want to know we belong, we want to know we're safe in the organization that we're in when we're going through this change.
Mhm.
So again, this goes back to your the messaging that you use. If you can use the language that taps into all of these needs, then then hopefully that will help facilitate your change.
For sure. Samantha, I almost feel like let's go back to that party and really talk about DEIB. It's interesting. I was speaking to somebody the other day, and I think I may have shared this in the last LinkedIn Live with them, and they said, "Oh, is change leadership? Are you guys focused on DEI or diversity and inclusion?" I'm like, no, we're not focused on it. But what we do realize is that as change leaders, because our focus is change leadership, how do you lead and manage change and respond to change in today's disruptive business environment? And we realize that one of the key things that we need to focus on is also DEI, not just technology. So we focus on technology, what it means to be a change leader, what are the drivers of change, How can we be more effective? And DEI is one thing that is really driving change. And as change leaders, we need to have that lens on in terms of how we communicating with our stakeholders, how we engaging our stakeholders, how we bringing them to the table, how we creating that diverse network that will ensure that we're bringing about the best change. There've been so many recent examples of I don't know if you're aware, there was this recent example where they built this whole system. This was government of Canada, I believe, and it was to even do with the, was it the passport? I forget now, but they built this whole system that was supposed to be used, and they hadn't even involved a broad stakeholder, so they'd missed out on some groups. When we think diversity and inclusion, we're thinking about if you have representation of different stakeholders, and we're all biased in our own different way, but when you bring different stakeholders to the table, you can build solutions, you can drive solutions that represent everyone, as opposed to just through our own lenses, and like you mentioned, the people we interact with on a day-to-day basis. That's the value of stakeholders. So thank you so much for bringing that up, Samantha.
My
Samantha,
pleasure.
one of the things that I'm so excited to even have you on here on is that you're one of our past students on the Change Leadership Accelerator course. And I want to learn from you, what made you take that course? What made you enroll for the Change Leadership Accelerator program?
Sure. Well, I've been in change management for about 18 years now, in different capacities, and I ended up studying psychology. So because of that, I had a sense that I know what the change leader is, but I also know this group. I know your company, and I know you, and so I wanted to reinforce my knowledge by taking a course from the experts. So I'm happy to say that I did take the course, and it helped me. Not only did it make me feel confident about what I know, but it also helped me recognize a change leader. So, since taking the course, I've actually had a better vision of who the change leaders are. So, I'm actually at quite a geeky level, getting excited about work at work. I'm like, there's a change leader. We need those people. And I might not have shouted quite as loudly had I not taken your course. So it definitely helped me fine tune my vision for who those leaders could be, because I knew it intrinsically,
Hmm.
but it just solidified it for me. So thank you for all the effort you put into creating that program.
You're most welcome. What would you say was your most notable or favorite takeaway from the Change Leadership Accelerator course?
Well, I think it's what I mentioned, that just being able to recognize the change leader, and also what's very helpful about the course is, you know, I took my change management certification program, and many of us have been reading about change management and leadership. But what's great is that you have a whole storehouse of resources. So it's not only a summary, but it's also some additions
Mm-hmm.
to that toolkit that we can use. So, for example, the head, hand, and heart method that I'm quite passionate about, the framework. I know that your group offers a survey that anybody can take, and I've already reached back and said, can I use this in the my own company that I work for, or with outside clients? Can I have them take the survey? And they said, absolutely. So it sort of adds more to my professional toolkit. And I'm not getting paid to say this. This is genuine. It's very helpful. So thank you.
You're most welcome. So, as a change leader, what would you say are some of the most frequent challenges you come across, and how you're overcoming that? Even as a change leadership, or with your competencies that you've been developing over so many years, the applied positive psychology, the change leadership accelerator, your broad experience. How are you overcoming these challenges as a change leader? What are they, and how are you overcoming them?
Sure. Well, what I've recognized is that resistors, or sometimes people have their backup, and when I was younger, I might have thought they're the enemy, right? but um, but through maturity, I've recognized that actually speaking to those people really helps, because you just talk them through what these barriers are. It could be that they're threatened about something, so it's how they're responding to the change rather than the change itself. So
Mhm.
I found that some of my coaching and active listening skills has really helped with that piece.
Mm. It's interesting that you say that. Last weekend, I was speaking with our cohort, our latest cohort, on the Change Leadership Accelerator course, and someone said, "You know what? Yvonne, I do see the value in having those resistors, in quote, those people who, resist change. And I really love it. The course, it helps them even change their mind and their perspective in seeing where there's value. And they said, but I don't like the name resistors.
You
It
could say responders, how they respond instead. There's a positive twist.
No, and maybe Samantha, that's something that I'm even going to come back to you on a positive psychology kind of perspective, because nobody wants to be called a resistor, but nobody wants to be called a
Hmm.
resistor. So, what would be another name that we could give to somebody who is resisting change? And like I say all the time, resisting change is not a negative thing, because when people resist change, as change leaders or change managers or anybody responsible for that change, it helps us go back and say, why are they resisting the change? Because we may have our blinders on. There may be something that we're not seeing. It helps us clarify our messages much better, because if there's that one person who is visibly resisting change, there are so many more who are resisting that change, but they're not being visible about it, or they're not being open about it, or vocal about that change. So resistant change isn't a bad thing. So I'm trying to look for a different word than resistors. So
What's coming to mind is a strong response. There's some people that are having a strong response to this change.
they have a strong
Could,
response. That could be
could
one.
try that one.
That could be one for sure. So Samantha, tell us one thing that you're working on right now. What's in your purview? What are you doing now in that space of leading and managing change?
Well, one thing I'm doing actually is I'm writing a book. So I'm writing a book called, I'm very interested. So, from a positive psychology perspective, on high quality connections. So,
Mhm,
how building connections and relationships um, affect your well-being, so that
mhm,
and your well-being affects your relationships, so workplace relationships as well as personal relationships. So the book I'm writing is called The Courage to Connect or
mm,
Disconnect. So we have courage to connect with people at work or in a relationship situation, and those connections help propel us to change.
mhm,
However, it's also important to talk about disconnecting, because
mm,
sometimes disconnecting or ending a work relationship or a personal relationship also leads you to change. So
mm,
I've interviewed about 15 or 20 professionals, all sorts of backgrounds. So medical professionals, as well as in the trades, as well as students, to get their perspective and hear their stories on how they've affected change through connecting and disconnecting. So the subtitle is Bravery Training to Propel Personal and Professional Change. So the book is for people who, I imagine somebody walking by the book, and it could be, a young man who doesn't know how to make new friends, and so he'd be like, oh,
mm,
there's a book about how to connect. But also for the executive who maybe, she's walking down and she sees a group of students and would really actually love to speak to those students and break up that circle and sit and learn from these new people in the company. But there's some kind of a faux pas because the hierarchy says it looks funny if the executive goes and sits with the student or
mm.
joins a different table at lunch than they would normally join. So there's some kind of bravery that has to happen. So I wanted to affect, those audiences as well. So think about the learning that can happen if we're a little bit more brave in those social interactions.
Can I just add one more category of people that may
Yes,
work with?
please.
Maybe
Yeah.
people like me who are just getting older and realizing that there's some people I just need to disconnect from, and but some other people I need to connect more with. And just
Hmm.
teaching me how to make those connections and make those disconnections in an authentic way, in a polite way, in a way that is courageous, because sometimes we just find ourselves going with the flow, doing things because we have to do it, or just because it's difficult to disconnect, whether in our social circles or in our professional circles, but it easily holds us back. So as I grow older, we all grow older, but as I grow,
I don't
the
think you get older.
yeah,
Yeah.
the more years I live on this earth, the more I realize the value of relationships, and the power of relationships. And but really also doing it, even if we're disconnecting, but doing that in a very authentic and respectful way, and doing that in a very courageous way. So I'm definitely looking forward to that book.
It's in there. It's in there.
and we'll come back to it. Samantha, we could go on, on this chat, and I know we would talk more and more because, especially because I know I get excited about psychology. But it's really been great to have you come on to our LinkedIn Live this week, and I'm looking forward to connecting with you some more, for sure. And to everybody who's joined us, or anybody who's coming on the Read broadcast, by all means, ask your questions. Please connect with Samantha. And, thank you for being part of the Change Leadership community. And don't forget, we have a masterclass which is coming on next week, how to be a successful change leader in your industry. So be sure to join our free masterclass. I'm going to post the link in the comments. So check the link out, and hopefully we get to connect pretty soon. And I'll see you next week, Thursday, or yeah, next week, Wednesday, the 25th. I'm getting it all mixed up. And Samantha, I look forward to us getting together again. Have a great day.
Absolutely. Thank you. Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you. Bye for now, everybody.